Welcome to another episode of our show. In this week's new retro games reviews, we have for you Tony Do It, an amazing new take on the Sokoban gameplay for the Atari XL XE systems, followed by Slotshot, a brilliant puzzle game for the Commodore 64, and we conclude these reviews with the incredible Pjusk, another wonderful puzzle game for the Commodore Amiga computers. In our hardware review, we examine the ULIFAC multifunction board for the Amstrad CPC and all the wonderful things that it brings to the system. Our DOS Vault brings to light the Ossuary, a very well-made Rogue-lite game, and remembers the cute and addictive Skweek, the fun puzzle platformer for the MS-DOS. In our retro adventures, we investigate Murray's Adventure, a point-and-click game with a sense of humor that packs quite a punch. And in our retrospect, we remember LucasArts' finest hour in the face of the amazing Full Throttle. Finally, our history lesson this week brings you the story of the Sega Master System, the console that made Sega. So, let's ride the show's time machine once more. Follow us! Welcome to this week's new retro games reviews. We begin with Tony Do It by Monochrome Productions for any Atari XL XE computer system. This is an interesting new take on the Sokoban recipe. You control Tony, an explorer who has discovered a huge Aztec treasure, but he is now trapped inside the dungeons with only one way to the exit: to solve the puzzle in its room and avoid its deadly enemies. The big twist here in the formula is that you cannot only push crates in order to place them in the correct position, but you can also pull them, giving you new tactical options. The graphics of the game are in the familiar style of Monochrome Productions. It's a wonderfully detailed environment with great characters that are really well detailed and animated. Each stage offers a completely different puzzle, and all of them are going to tease your brain until you find the right combination. There is an in-game music that, even though it's a loop of the same theme, it actually fits the gameplay and it never becomes tiresome or boring. The controls of the game are very simple and very easy to get used to and won't give you any trouble. The gameplay is addictive and the puzzles are really smart. There is a time meter that's running out, so keep that in mind. You don't have the luxury to walk around and try way too many solutions. Also, if you touch one of the enemies, the time meter runs faster, so try to avoid them. Now, on to the rankings. And the graphics of the game receive a 9. The controls of the game receive a 9.1. The music and sound effects an 8.5. And the gameplay a 9.2, for a total of 8.9. This new and interesting take on the Sokoban recipe from Monochrome Productions brings a fresh idea into a classic game and makes it even more addictive than it was before. This is one of the finest additions on the Atari XL XE library of games. Give it a go and you won't regret it. Our second game is Slotshot, a very interesting blend of puzzle and shooter gameplay for the Commodore 64. Now, there is a background story about a deep space colony being infected by a mysterious crystalline growth, but trust me when I say the story is nothing to write home about. What's really amazing in this game is the gameplay. Simple in its premise, but still addictive and very smart. There is a series of blocks that's always growing with new lines, and they're coming your way. You get to shoot different colored blocks towards it, and each time you do, if you manage to complete the line vanishes, and the rest of the blocks beyond, above that line, falls to the back. Now, there are different kind of blocks that you might shoot, such as the yellow ones that passes through an entire line to end up wherever there is another yellow, or others that are more solid, and so on and so on. Now, the whole premise, as I said, seems very simple, as are the graphics of the games, but, well, trust me when I say this is devilishly addictive. It's a very smart and fast gameplay, and will have you hooked in no time. It's one of those games that you play, and when you try to quit, you say, okay, just one more round, and you realize it's the early hours in the morning. Now, the graphics of the game receive a 7. The music and sound effects, an 8. The controls, a 9.2. And the gameplay, a 9.6. For an amazing 8.5. This is one of the greatest, smartest puzzle games for the Commodore 64, quite unique in its premise. Do not miss it. Trust me when I tell you. Our last new retro game for this week is Pjusk by Superdan for Commodore Amiga. This is a very smart puzzle game, and even though it's not exactly a new game, it has been rewritten and slightly improved, as the website says, as the creator of the game had a little mishap with the code of the original game. So he rebuilt it from scratch, enabling also the ability for the game to receive in the future expansion levels. Now, in this game, you guide your knight through the dungeons, and you have a specific amount of energy. With each hit against an enemy, you lose a point, but so does the enemy. Now, depending on the strength of your weapon, you lose more or less points or no points if the enemy is weaker. By combining these numbers, the strength of your weapon and the strength of the enemy and his weapon, you must find the right combination of attacks, or avoid attacks altogether if possible, in order to solve the battle puzzle, let's call it, in each room and guide your knight to the exit. It is a very clever combination of puzzle and action game with small elements of RPG, as you can collect power-ups and more powerful weapons and shields and many other objects. The graphics of the game are of the cute kind, we would say, but they are very well animated and they serve their purpose quite well, creating a very beautiful environment. There is a variety of enemies, and the puzzles are always, well, serious brain teasers, I would say. It needs good thinking, good strategic thinking on your behalf in order to solve each room. Of course, the game starts pretty easily, but becomes much more difficult as the stages move on. There is a good music that accompanies the game and its stage, and interesting sound effects that I would describe as quite functional. The controls are extremely easy, and there is nothing to give you a hard time here. But the gameplay is at the core of this game, which is really excellent and requires from you to put on your thinking hat in order to solve the sometimes devilishly hard but smart puzzles. Now, the rankings of the game are as follows. The graphics receive a 9. The controls a 9.3. The music and sound effects a 9. And the gameplay a 9.4. For a total of 9.2. And of course, the title of the Game of the Week. This is a very smart puzzle game, excellently made for the Commodore Amiga computers that will keep you occupied for quite a long time. It's fun, addictive, and very well made. It's one of the best games of its kind for the Amiga, and you would do well to give it a try. Welcome to this week's hardware review, and this week we have for you the ULIFAC or ULIFAC. It's the ultimate interface for Amstrad CPC. Now this is a very important board, multifunctioning for the Amstrad CPC. You can see here the USB port that you connected to the system in order to install your ROM files. It has its own memory. You don't need to insert a SD card. Now there are some important keys here. This is the pause key where you get to pause a game. It's useful for pokes and stuff. This here is the mode switch. You get to change this board between the 6128 or 664 system, meaning the computers that had the floppy disk drive, and the 464 system that had the tape recorder. This is a reset button, and this little thing here is the disk swap button that helps you swap disks if it's a multi-disc game. There is an extra power supply port here, but I found that the device works perfectly by the power provided from the Amstrad, so I didn't find it necessary to use. The device comes with a series of connectors. This is the classic for the Edge connector, but it also comes, at least the device that came to my hands, came also with an Edge connector, a Centronics connector. So, the device on the inside is very interesting. It's upgradable in a variety of ways. You can also install a Wi-Fi module, Bluetooth module. It's very versatile. Also, there is the ability to insert straight up here. Like I said, this is the USB port. You insert a flash drive. It's what we're gonna do, a USB flash drive. And you load your ROMs from there. Let's go see it in action, and we'll come back to sum it up. All right, and here we go. We have booted up our device. As you can see, this is the menu that will welcome you once you boot it up. It's already switched in 6128 and 664 mode. What does that mean? It's a simple command that if you insert it, SM2, caps lock, SM2, wait for it, I'm still learning. Yes, it's SM:2. Now this is the 464 mode selected. Even if you reset the device now, it remains in 464, or even if you turn off the system entirely and turn it on again, it's still on 464 mode, as you can see. Now, in order to go to the 6128, we go with SM:2. SM:1. There it is. Rebooting, and we are in 6128 mode. Now, starting initially, you can see the contents of the unit, whatever is inside. I have inserted a flash drive to the USB port I've shown you earlier. It contains the Simb OS, applications, and of course some games that we're going to see. Now, you can use it in the classical way, you know, try to enter the directories and find the disk. It loads disk files that you want, and there is a whole process, but this unit makes it very easy for you to use it. You can run the FM command, which is the installed file manager. It's very easy to use, it's very useful. Now, let's see how it works. Let's go to the ROMs and to games. Now, I've categorized my games on various categories here. Let's go with B. You know which game I'm going to load, don't you? Now, let's go load a Batman game. Now, the only disadvantage I found in this is the fact that there, FDC emulation enabled. As you can see, it loads the disk file pretending it is a normal disk drive. So all you have to do now is type run. In this case, it's batman.bus and enter. And there you go. This is now why this happened, because I was about to say that the only problem I found was the fact that you can't see the entire name of your files. As you see, by running the file manager again, it brings us exactly where we went. Okay, let me load Badlands. Again, emulation enabled. Now, one way to do this is, as I've shown you, you can also load bus, and once it loaded, type run and run the game. Now, some games will have problems running in this method. When that happens, you can try a different one. Although I've only met 2 games that wouldn't run like this, it could be a problem of the disk file. Not the best conversion, but at least it's fast. And the controls are good. Whoa. Now, the other keys here, the M brings you back to this place. There is another key on the board that says D. If you press that button, it will switch to the second disc of the game you're playing if it is a multi-disc game. So it's extremely useful button when you're playing multi-disc games. There is also a P button. This is a pause switch. You can pause the games. And you can use the board, the M. What it does is, if you see here, it says now 512 kilobytes of RAM. It inserts, let's say, to the system 512 kilobytes of RAM expansion. If you push it again, it switches to 256 kilobytes of RAM plus 16 ROM board. Let's go back. Depending on what you want to do, it's your choice. Now, there is a series of commands that you can also use. Inside the device, there is the option, if you open it up, to insert a Wi-Fi module or even a Bluetooth module. It's really a very expandable device. It's excellent, I think. Now, of course, the board doesn't come with any games. You're gonna have to provide your own or a flash drive, but it's been very well packaged and with multiple ribbons, as I said, for Centronics and Edge connection. Now, I won't give you any more trouble. You did see the basic functions of the cartridge. The majority of the games are running without any problem. Sometimes you'll need to switch modes here, and sometimes you need to switch the file type. But mostly you will run everything with no problem at all. And I think this cartridge will be your best buddy. It includes a lot of tools to help you. There is a very thorough manual that will show you some new commands. There is also a way to send utilities and games from the PC straight to the board. I suggest you really read extensively the manual. Let's go sum up our findings. Now, the device, as you see, is very versatile. It does have a few issues with file names. That's to be expected. Many of the files out there are made for emulators. This is a hardware device. It emulates the floppy drives. You need the disk files. You need to be very careful what you load and how you load it. It provides the system with extra memory, 256 or 512 kilobytes. It's a very powerful interface. It's very economical too, compared to what it offers. It's well built. The choice of colors could be a little better, but okay, that's totally irrelevant with its functions. I think it's an indispensable, a valuable piece of hardware for your Amstrad. And I suggest you get one whilst you can. It will change the way you enjoy your CPC. So from us, as usual, this is a thumbs up. And we'll see you next week. Welcome to this week's DOS Vault, and we begin with Ossuary, a rogue RPG, or rather rogue-lite, by Sinning Stan. Now, this is the classic story of a necromancer who has taken over a cemetery, rising up the dead and mutating the local creatures. You, a young and willing hero, are in the area and you've been asked to save the village. Now, you move about in one step at a time, approaching creatures, treasures, traps, entrances, and you attack or pick up or activate anything that's right in front of you just by pointing in its direction. The graphics of the game are made in the classic CGA mode, but they are very well designed. The characters are interesting looking. You can make up anything that attacks you, and your character is also well drawn. The dungeons take various forms, although most of the time they look like typical labyrinths. Not to say that they are complicated or that you will have a hard time finding the exit. You will have a hard time reaching the exit alive sometimes. Now, along the way you can pick up treasures, magic items, potions, and even better equipment. The controls of the game are a little bit complicated. You use the space bar to choose the action that you want to perform, including wielding items, unequipping, using potions, or dropping items. It's not overly complicated, but it takes a little while to get used to it. There is no music in-game whatsoever, and the sound effects are rudimentary, but in games like that, it's the gameplay that is the star, and Ossuary is an extremely simple and addictive rogue-lite game that will take up a lot of your time once you begin playing it. Now, on to the rankings, and the graphics of the game receive a 7. The controls of the game, an 8. The music and sound effects, a 6. And the gameplay, a 9.1. For a total of 7.5. What it lacks in looks and sound, Ossuary makes up for a very addictive gameplay, using a very well-known formula, but utilizing it to the extreme of playability. It is a game that's really worth your time if you can look past its crude looks. You should see that for yourself. We definitely recommend it. Our Vault Retrospect today is for Skweek, a puzzle game that's best played by 2 players. It is a game that came out in 1989 by Logiciels, a French game. Now you control 1 or 2 fuzzy, furry creatures, and you have to paint the town red or blue depending on your character. Now, the goal of the game is to run over the tiles and leave your color behind. There are various creatures that will try to stop you. Now, when you play in 2-player modes, which is the most fun, first plays the first player, player number 1, and then the second one. The interesting part in this is that what you painted with your color, the second player tries to repaint with his, pretty much undoing all the hard work you've done. Now, you have means to defend yourself against the various creatures. There is a bouncing bullet that you can launch towards the creatures, but they move erratically and unpredictably, and most of the time will try to avoid it. There is a variety of enemies, including ghosts or flames that leave bombing traps behind that, should you step on them, will make a 3x3 area explode and vanish, although you always have enough time to run away. There are various bonuses as multi-shots and freezing beams and various others. Now, the interesting thing also is that if you complete a round, you move on ahead, whilst the other player, if he hasn't completed the round, stays in the previous one until he does. The graphics of the game are in the EGA mode, and they're very, very colorful and very well animated with cute characters that move about very fast. The controls are very simple, as all you have to do is use the directional buttons and the spacebar. The sound of the game is very, very good. There are various musical themes depending on the stage you're on or the state you're on, meaning if you have activated a bonus or not. The sound effects are also equally good. There weren't a lot of puzzle games for the PC that looked that good back in the day, and Skweek is one of the best looking and most fun. The graphics of the game receive a 9. The controls a 9.1. The music and sound effects an 8. And the gameplay a 9.1 as well, for a total of 8.8. Skweek was a very fun, very addictive puzzle game that's best enjoyed with a pal. If you have it, bring it out again and give it a go with a friend of yours. Welcome to this week's Retro Adventures. We begin with Murray's Adventure Game. It's a game by MK Games Hub, and it's a classic point-and-click adventure, or rather a dark and absurd fantasy point-and-click adventure as the creators of the game name it. This is obviously a comedy adventure game in which you play as a young drifter who wakes up in a dark forest without knowing how or why he got there. A note in your pocket tells you that you are the last person that can save the kingdom without explaining anything further. Now, the game has a quirky and kind of special sense of humor. Now, I understand that humor is a personal flavor for everyone. I personally found the jokes of the game pretty hilarious most of the times. But you should try it out for yourself and see if it fits your tastes. The humor is also bound to the puzzles of the game. You will have to think outside the box in order to solve the puzzles. Some of them require some pretty crazy, let's say, actions on your behalf. The interesting thing is that the actions are crazy but not absurd. So if you really put your mind into it, you can find the solution to almost every puzzle. I would characterize the game as easy to medium difficulty. The graphics of the game are very well made with beautiful and well animated characters. There is good music, nothing special, and very nice sound effects. The user interface is the classic point and click with the utilization of an inventory. Now, on to the rankings of the game, and the graphics receive a 9.1. The puzzles of the game, an 8. The music and sound effects, an 8.5. The controls and gameplay, an 8.9. For a total of 8.6. Murray's Adventure is a very funny, very crazy, and very interesting adventure game. You should keep in mind though that this is the demo version of the game, and even though it's big enough to be enjoyable and make you interested in the game, you will have to wait a bit for the full version. We personally think that it's really worth it, and Murray's Adventure will be a very good game to add to your adventure collection. Give it a try. Our retrospect adventure game today is one of the most revered adventure games of the DOS era. This is Full Throttle by LucasArts. Full Throttle came out at May 19, 1995, and it was the first LucasArts game to be featured in a CD-ROM. It was also the last game of the SCUM user interface series to come out for the MS-DOS operating system. It featured amazing music by the rock band The Gone Jackals and professional voiceovers by people like Mark Hamill and Kath Soucie and Hamilton Camp.
And if some cash doesn't come our way soon, we're in big
Now,
trouble.
this adventure game was the biker's dream.
Something's coming our way.
Now, the story places you in the role of Ben, the leader of a motorbike gang, and you get to meet your idol, the elderly Malcolm Corley, owner and CEO of the last motorcycle manufacturer in the country. There is a whole conspiracy concerning his vice president and shady characters, but you'll get to see the story once you play it and meet all your allies and enemies that are all colorful and interesting characters in a story that truly fits the atmosphere of the game. Now, I won't say any more of the story as to not ruin it for you. Suffice to say that it's a story full of intrigue, adventures, and a lot of riding in bikes. Now, the game has amazing graphics for its day, but even for today. It was using the insane animation engine which was used in the Star Wars Rebel Assault 2 game. Most of the graphics look like a high-valued production of cartoon. The music of the game is amazing, as you may have guessed, and the voiceovers just out of this world. The game utilizes an evolved version of the SCUM engine, in which there is a pie menu, as it was called, giving you some functions that you can choose. It is very easy and very intuitive, and it just is the final step in the evolution of the SCUM engine. Now, the game is a bit short. That was the biggest complaint back in the day about it, but that doesn't change the fact that it's one of the best games that ever came out from LucasArts. Now, this adventure game was a landmark for LucasArts, as it was the first game to break the barrier of 1 million units sold, even though initial projections were for 100,000 copies. Unfortunately, the game, even though planned, never received a sequel. Tim Schafer, who was the creation of the game, had left the company at the time, and the sequel fell into development hell, as it was called. That doesn't change the fact that Full Throttle is one of the most classic, enjoyable, action-packed adventure games ever to come out. Now, on to the rankings, and the graphics of the game receive a 9.4. The puzzles of the game, an 8.9. The music and sound effects a 9.5.
Yeah.
And controls and gameplay a 9. For a well worth it 9.2. Full Throttle is a classic, iconic, and amazing adventure game. If you haven't had the chance to play it back in the day, you should really get onto it right now, as you're missing out one of the greatest, not just adventure games, but greatest games ever to come out on the PC.
What are you?
I'm a mechanic, and apparently a pretty good doctor as well. My name's Maureen.
My name's Bill.
Persistent, innovative, and definitely tough to take down. These are just a few things that one could call Sega, but a quitter? No sir. In 1982, the video games market was completely different to the one we know. After the economic boom that came with the early successes of games like Space Invaders, the arcades in Japan entered a crisis state with a significant downturn in profits. Sega's main income was at the time the various arcade venues all over Japan, and something needed to be done to rectify the company's finances before it became impossible to correct. Thus, Hayao Nakayama, president of Sega, instructed and inspired the technicians to develop a home console that would bring the company's arcade hits to the homes of Japanese gamers. The designs of this project resulted in the creation of SG-1000, Sega's first foray into the video game console business. SG-1000 was released in Japan on July of 1983, and more specific, on July the 15th, the very same day that Nintendo released the famous Family Computer, or Famicom as it is known, the original version of NES. The timing was terrible. The SG-1000 was by no means a bad machine, but the technological aspect of the console was closer to that of a ColecoVision, with whom it shared more than a few characteristics, including the Zilog Z80A processor, than the Famicom, whose tech specifications were quite advanced for the day. Nonetheless, Sega pushed on, and soon, following the Western trend of the advancing micro home computers, released a couple of peripherals to turn SG-1000 into a home computer, and even a standalone version of it, the SC-3000. Soon the SG-1000 was re-released in 1984 in the form of the SG-1000-2, a minor hardware upgrade in an attempt to compete more effectively with Famicom. It would seem though that it was all in vain. The system was making little to no impact on the Japanese market, and it was obvious that something more drastic was needed. Legendary hardware designers Hideki Sato and Masami Ishikawa took over control of the hardware division, and with the support of both Hayao Nakayama and Sega's co-founder David Rosen, they redesigned completely the system. The new model, named Sega Mark III, had a significant advantage over the competing Famicom. Armed once more with a Zilog Z80A running at 3.58 MHz, it switched the aging and limited Texas Instruments TMS-9918A graphics chipset for the newer and far more advanced GPU custom-made by Sega, based on Sega System Arcade Systems VDU, aka Video Display Unit, providing the Mark III with a resolution of 256 by 192, with 32 colors on screen. The new GPU was capable of a series of effects, including pseudo-scaling, hardware sprites, and limited parallax scrolling. Mark III also significantly upgraded the sound chipset, with Sega integrating the SN76489 sound chipset into the video display processor, allowing it to work in better sync and providing the system with the ability to upgrade the sound with an FM sound peripheral. The slightly awkwardly designed controllers of the SG series were also remade completely, and the console could connect to a variety of peripherals such as a light gun, 3D glasses, and even a light pen. Mark III was released in Japan on October of 1985 for 15,000 yen, and once more it fell into a wall. The system was much more powerful than the Famicom, but Nintendo by then had grabbed all the significant licenses on the market and held the developers tight, with very strict contract rules, leaving Sega with a few minor hits and its own back catalog of arcade games to provide Mark II with. Sega, seeing the investment they made in the console market getting ready to sink, decided to turn into a different region for better luck. By appointment of Rosen and Nakayama, Sega grabbed Bruce Lowry, then Vice President of Nintendo's sales department, and placed him as head of the newly found Sega of America. Sole purpose of this was, of course, to infiltrate the North American market and seize a solid position early on. The Mark III, according to Lowry, was not designed in a way that would appeal to the Western markets, so an exterior redesign was made, giving the console its distinct futuristic look we know today. The console was also renamed into the Sega Master System, a name that seemed more fitting and empowering for the American audiences. A complete package was created that included the console, a light gun, 2 controllers, and a pack-in cartridge containing 2 games, the Hang-On and the Safari Hand. The Master System was launched on the US in September 1986 at the price of $200, the equivalent of today's $595, a bit higher than the $180 of the Nintendo Entertainment System, but with significant number of pack-ins giving greater value for money. Once more though, success seemed to elude Sega. Having a presence in the US since late 1985, Nintendo had already grabbed the US market as well, and tied it down with its strict contract rules and binding obligations for the developers to avoid another video game crash incident like the one that had happened back in 1983 because of Atari's terrible tactics. Even though it fared better than in Japan, outselling Atari's 7800 by 25,000 units, it still lagged unbelievably below Nintendo's 1.1 million units. Lowry soon left the company, and Sega unloaded the distribution rights to local toy company Tonka, who mismanaged Master System, not giving it a chance to thrive. Sega re-released the console in Japan as the Master System this time, but by the end of the year had only managed to attain a mere 10% of the market. Nintendo was deposed from the first place in mid-1987, but not from Sega, rather than from a new competitor, NEC, that brought the PC Engine to the market, a console that was far superior to both the NES and the Master System, putting extra pressure on Sega. Sega turned into the only region it hadn't tried her hand on, Europe. Left to its own devices, the European continent never really took a ride in the video game console market up to that point, investing in the booming micro home computers and practically shifting the center of informatics to the region, and more specifically, the UK. Sega approached Mastertronic for the UK distribution, that, after a few financial troubles, transformed into Virgin Mastertronic. It also went into a deal with Master Games in France and Ariola Soft in West Germany, although that deal fell through really quick. The Master System came out in August 1987 in the European continent, and more specifically in countries like the UK, France, Spain, West Germany, Greece, and Italy, on a much warmer reception than the one it had in the US and Japan. The system's graphics and sound capabilities were far more superior than most 8-bit computers could offer at the time, and the whole arcade experience that Sega was promising seemed real to an extent. The low price of the console helped as well, as the system was launched initially at the enticing price of £99, an equivalent of £380 today. In a rather genius move that seemed to fit the European market's philosophy, Virgin Mastertronic initiated an offer that allowed consoles and the games to be rented through video club chains, something that raised product awareness significantly. Sega even organized championships and competitions, and invested heavily in marketing campaigns in a region mostly ignored by Nintendo at the time, helping her gain the majority of the market share in video game consoles. By the end of 1990, Sega had managed to surpass the magic number of 1 million console sales in Europe. Sega had finally found its crowd. The announcement of Sega Game Gear helped the company establish itself in Europe, as the Game Gear took over the European handheld market, since Game Boy was not officially announced in Europe yet. Most of the Game Gear sales were from this region, further proof that Sega was now the master European console market. The Master System, though, was on its last foot already. The successor to this console was already manufactured and introduced in the Japanese market by late 1988, named Sega Mega Drive, a powerhouse of 16-bit gaming, and although it fared quite badly in Japan once more, the entry to the US market was encouraging. Soon the console was brought to the European shores and took the market by storm. Nintendo's playing it safe tactics seemed to backfire, as the insistence of the company to remain to the immensely successful 8-bit NES allowed Sega to bring all the latest power-hungry arcades to its new 16-bit console, with Nintendo unable to port them in the aging NES. Soon Mega Drive, or Genesis as it was known in the US, took over as market leader, and Sega were on its way to becoming the dominant force, and a rival that from now on Nintendo had to acknowledge. The Master System did have a redesign in the form of a cheaper and more compact version, the Master System 2, and it even came out in limited regions as another remake, the Master System 3, but both systems failed to make the same impact as the original. Europe returned the attention that Sega had shown the region, keeping the system alive for a few more years, some months even surpassing sales of the Mega Drive and the NES combined. The last game to come out for the Master System in Europe was Streets of Rage 4 in 1994, more than a decade after the SG-1000 release. The Master System may not have been the behemoth of sales that the Famicom-NES combination was, but without it, Sega would not have created its fanatic user base, and the world would have missed the opportunity to meet an innovative and bold company that always took risks, and sometimes they paid off.